Hey everybody, Chapter 9, Minn of the Mississippi, is called The Lake in the River. Yesterday we read the chapter about Minn becoming the river monster. Did she really become a monster? No, the guy was just so scared, he remembered her as a monster. There's some of how they keep the Mississippi River dug at a right level. There's a detailed map of the area we're going to talk about here, just south of the Twin Cities. Fishermen laughed. That guy almost swallowed by a turtle. Scared stiff by an old snapper. Alligator turtles. They don't come as far as north as Hastings, Minnesota. Right now, that old snapper did not remember her awful experience. Days from churning through another big dam near Hastings, she drifted to Prescott at the mouth of the St. Croix River. Minn bumped against mossy pilings. She sank in the shade of the big dock above her. She was too dizzy to notice people on the dock. "Yep, son," said an old-timer sitting on the dock. "You folks are now in Wisconsin." "Yes, St. Croix is French for Holy Cross. That there river divides Wisconsin and Minnesota." Old Trapper Stream it was. French and Indian canoed from Lake Superior by the short Brule River and down to the St. Croix. Later, 'twas famous for logging, and Prescott here was leaping with lumberjacks. Every Saturday night, Prescott built fast and fancy steamboats, too, all snow-white like floating castles on frosted lace. "How's that? You heard the other day a man was nigh eaten by a monster." "Shucks, we're used to monsters in these parts. Ever hear of the giant Paul Bunyan? Him and his sky-blue ox babe plowed that ditch of the Mississippi. Yeah, 1,000-mile ditch, Minneapolis to the Ohio. Them hills all along it, them bluffs, are just clods turned up by Paul's monster plow. You get a lumberjack going on those yarns, you'll soon see everything larger than natural size. But there really is a river monster downstream, a lake, and it has swallowed boats and plenty of people. 48 miles south here is the Chippewa River. Some 1,000 years back, it dumped sand in its mouth and dammed up the Mississippi River, made it swell like a ditch from bluff to bluff. At last, it busted the dam through to keep going, but that spit-out lake is still there. P-E-P-I-N, it's spelled. We call her Pippin. 20 miles long by 2 or 3. Hey, Pippin, Wisconsin is where Laura Ingalls Wilder's one house is built. You can go see that there. Steep bluff walls, too many good landings for boats or even canoes. Mighty pretty lake she is, but as a sailor took in by her beauty, has been mighty upset by her squally temper. Talk about winds, waves, and wrecks. There's Minn being tossed about. There's the lake. Minn suddenly awoke. "People here!" She fled in terror. Another deer near Red Wing frightened her again. Then came the stinker of her hook and line river. Bottom-wise, Minn was not bothered by waves at first, but she did not like this lake bed. Sometimes on solid rock, sometimes on bumpy boulders rolled down from the north. She could not sleep well. Town beaches held enough mud for a snooze, but she was shy. Big waves pried her loose, slapped her down like a tea kettle lid at the boil. What about those dizzy currents? She would lean on pushing water, but then it slid out from under. She ached for a good stiff current going all one way. Blown off course at the surface time and time again, washed shore to shore, dribbled along the bluff. No wonder her built-in turtle patience wobbled under the strain. Minn was not alone in her weariness. Little boats on Lake Pepin calm can be dumped by sudden breezes. Shanty boats running downstream at its mercy were sometimes frightened. Big boats often call its black name. It was a wretched steamers. It had wrecked steamers. Yet some creatures liked Lake Pippin. Tourists lining boat rails with cameras snapped up its grandeur. Artists tear paints climbing the cliffs for scenic paintings to sell for more paints and pans. Crows like Lake Pepin, too. They had fun fanning out from grassy heights on rising pillows of air, which lifted them up in soaring spirals without batting a wing. And buzzards, crows, and buzzards squat on the crags, spotting dead fish and boat garbage miles up the lake, wondering if the trip would be worth it all in all this wind. Yet these carefree creatures of the air are above Lake Pippin. Minn was in it, and she could not soar away. Almost every rock rearing from the majestic bluffs had its tale for telling. Folks just loved the legend of the lovesick Indian maid. Right off them rocks she leaped. Yep, right on over yonder. Smack dab down she jumped. From any old height that comes handy for spinning the story. At times it seemed she soared out from altitudes higher than the mossy bluffs themselves. Sometimes 'twas the reason, something for another, relatives somehow were mixed in it. But on one point all telltales agree. She aimed to get away from it all, and that part Minn might have understood. She, too, aimed to get away. And here's more map and pictures of the Indians and the traders. On Lake Pippin's bottom, Minn found the wreck of an old birch canoe. Clay that had long preserved the canoe, but shifting currents had uncovered it. From far Montreal and French Canada had brought goods for the Indian fur trade to Fort Antoine on Lake Pippin, and had weathered rapids and Great Lake gales, only to sink again sight of the fort. Men waded over small gunpowder kegs, bundles of guns and lead bars, broken chests spilled copper balls into brass kettles, knives and tomahawks were rusted in square chunks, their rawhide packs rotted away. Minn's feet sank in boxes of beads. She saw small glass discs that were once mirrors. Minn was now captain and crew of this cargo. Her voyage had ended 2 centuries and a half before she was born. Minn's canoe had come here because of a far distant happening. First, Spaniards had explored the South and the Gulf of Mexico, discovering the lower Mississippi while searching for gold. Then Frenchmen came to the East Coast, the Gulf of St. Lawrence, started the fur trade in Canada, and found the upper Mississippi. In those early days, the Mississippi, America's greatest south-flowing river, was first Spanish, then French. Its furry wealth from upstreams, forests, and prairies went by canoe to the Great Lakes, and their east-flowing outlet, the St. Lawrence River, and on east to France. Beaver skins were the main pelts of the fur trade, but Frenchmen traded for other pelts as well, sleek or woolly, striped or spotted or plain. Besides buckskin and bison robes, streams crawled with Indian canoes trading pelts to French forts. The frontier trading posts to be bound into bales for easy portage. Minn's ancestors probably watched them from the reeds as fur canoes sped to the Great Lakes and beyond, paddled and pushed and pulled and portaged by chanting Frenchmen and Indians, known from forest campfires to castles in Europe as the Gay Voyager and Swift Courier de Bois, the runners of the woods. For those who can, listen. Lake Piffin's bluff tell tales of the old voyagers. Only hearers, only thunders the roars of the wind and hissing of the rain. Minn was hard of hearing. At last she found her way out of Lake Pippin and rolled down the river.